I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:30. I'd like to recognize Steve Lemke and John Wellman. Welcome. We have some additions to the agenda. Peter, do you want to?
Yes, the first addition is the appointment of a Recreation Commissioner. The second one is a request for volunteers, and the third one is regarding some horse problems.
And the horse issue is going to be...
The horse issue will be under new business.
New business. Okay, any changes to the agenda order?
Nope.
The first item of business is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 10th, 2018. They were in the folder. Is everybody fine with them?
I guess I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I forgot to say Richard's traveling. General update on the highway is culverts, in a word,
And grading.
and grading.
Two things they've been doing.
And Dan is at a meeting tonight and is going to try to get in here later if he can. John, you are on for drainage problems. Would you like to present?
You ready for that now?
Yes, you're
Okay.
up right now
Okay.
on the agenda.
Okay.
Would you like to come and join
Yeah,
us?
thank you. Well, first of all, I appreciate you letting me talk to you because normally 5 is the domain of the state. I don't know how many of you are familiar with coins, but Calvin Coolidge was, of course, a great man. I don't know if you knew, but he's actually pictured on coins during 150th when he was president. You can see his portrait there, and he's with George Washington. As far as I know, it's the only U.S. coin that ever had 2 presidents pictured on it.
That's really neat.
But I thought you guys might, since you're going to hear me talk about Route 5, you might be interested in hearing to see that.
You're here to talk about, sorry?
The
Route 5,
drainage
okay.
problems on Route 5. That guy also, when he had his funeral, he was drawn by a horse-drawn carriage from Northampton, where he was mayor for many years, up Route 5 to Plymouth Notch.
Okay.
Anyway, good evening, Select Board. I thank you for the opportunity to state my mind. I'm Johnny Wellman, a Briarville native, who in October of '74 purchased the former Esso gas station on Route 5 as my domicile. Nearly a century ago, your predecessors learned of Silent Calvin Coolidge's Grand Road US Route 5. President Coolidge's Route 5 forever changed the eastern half of the state of Vermont and ushered in tourism to the state of Vermont. When World War II ended, many returning GIs selected Route 5 for their working man home sites. President Eisenhower administration, remembering Pearl Harbor, envisioned a military road system. Like said, we're not going to get caught with our pants down again. Silent Cal's Grand Road Plan for US Route 5 saw daylight again. Not many of you realized it, but those plans were so encompassing for Route 5 that it basically became the whole basis for it in '91. And that's the main reason that Route 5 '91 in Vermont was completed long before Massachusetts. And so Massachusetts finally said, I guess we got the northern target for our 91. It's going to have to be Guilford, Vermont. The completion of the Interstate 91 in '89, the state of Vermont basically doubled the amount of highway miles that they had to deal with. And our Vermont legislation, in their good judgment, decided that they only needed half the number of state employees or highway employees, which basically meant that the plow driver, instead of plowing 1 mile of road when the snow started to fall, had 4 to do. It kind of gives you the idea of some of the problems that they face. I know you guys face stuff similar with their highways in here. I would also be remiss not to mention that with the creation of the annual Green Up Day, that was another chore that the state employees were forced to deal with, to shoulder a lot of that burden, picking up a lot of that stuff. In short, basically, being that since '74, I would have to give the Vermont Agency of Transportation a very praiseworthy response for what they had to, the work they've done on 5 with the difficult conditions and constraints they've been under. Okay, now when the ice retreated northward following the Big Trill, my ancestors, the Skokie people, and Skokie means the people who separated, discovered that Ozos, that's our Great Spirit, had fulfilled his promise, which was a land that could be transformed into a paradise for as long as the sun rolled from east to west across the sky. My native Skokie people selected Squawkeg, which is Northfield, Massachusetts today, as Squawkeg means the place where they spear fish, to be mankind, humans' very first village. And I do mean for red man, for black man, for yellow and white. I'm preparing a book about it, but it's important to realize that that was the cradle of civilization. The Skokie infant we called the papoose until he was invited by the village elders to attend the flat rock where the salmon dance. Now this flat rock where the salmon dance is where my grandfathers learned that, like the black bear, the importance of leaving enough behind for the next 7 generations. The salmon swimming up what we call the Cough, which you folks call the Connecticut River, could take either tributary, the Fall River today, or Broad Brook, and swim upstream to the Continental Divide, which is the flat rock where the salmon dance. And this was about a 300-foot in length stone, and yes, the salmon did dance or walk from one side to the other side of that tributary. Now, this flat dancing rock, if you're familiar with where the snowmobile trail is, you would cross that. It's in the Hiley's backyard, basically. Also unique to this ancestor special place is that in that landscape, when the glacier melted, it compressed the earth only about 1/4 of an inch per foot, that for about a mile, either side of that continental divide. And so the drainage was always at best poor in that mile section. So to let you get some idea how little the 1/4 inch grade is, most of our average roofs have a 3 to 12 grade. So we're talking a very small grade for a mile either side of that continental divide. If you select board members chose to park your car, what the Crossman Slate Quarry is, you could view the northernmost section of that. It's still quite visible where that really starts to drop off and where the shallow area is. Now, if you also, when you were parked at that place, you would see the only culvert that's on the west side of Route 5, north of where the salmon danced. The only one that's on that side. There are 2 16-inch box culverts before you get to Tyler Hill. When Tyler Hill was reconstructed, they didn't put any culvert under it. They relied strictly on percolation through stone to get to it. There are, I count 5 16-inch box culverts. The state upgraded the one by Kachuk Road and went from a 4-foot to an 8-foot culvert. And it doesn't take any math whiz to realize that you're going to have a problem when you put all of that water on that side of the road and there's no drainage thing. We have a lot of stagnant water. On the other side of the divide, you will notice that the water doesn't even get from the west to the east side. It's stagnant there. I think you people are all aware that West Nile is a very present thing in Windham County now, so stagnant water becomes more of an issue than ever. A few years ago, we had a lot of bats, and the bats would come out and took care of a lot of the mosquito problems. And anybody that knows anything about mosquitoes know that it was really the downfall of building the Panama Canal. More people died from malaria and waterborne illness there. So I don't know what happens. The bats, of course, to get anything from from a mosquito, they have to bite you a second or third time after they've bitten the host or something. So years ago, when we had plenty of bats, the problem wasn't as great as it is now. What I'm going to suggest tonight is that, I left a note for Dan. He hasn't had a chance to get to me. I was going to show him what some of the drainage so he could do it. On the other side, it becomes a real problem from him under Lowry Road. There's a culvert there that is running at capacity with, a 10-year storm instead of a 100-year storm. What I am suggesting tonight is that we think some about it and talk some among ourselves about it, but that we consider for the one that is basically holds all the cards is the Agency of Natural Resources. I don't think I've tried, I don't know how many times I've tried to talk with them and how unsuccessful I've been. I'm suggesting tonight to you people that we invite whoever the head honcho of the Agency of Natural Resources is to our annual town Guilford Selectboard meeting, and and that as a body we can all talk with them and tell them what a great concern it is to us that the problem is resolved. As far as those of us that live on 5, we have to deal every time the interstate gets closed of a whole bunch of traffic coming through the town. And like it or not, when you people were elected select board members, you were kind of, one of the duties that you probably don't like is that you're it kind of falls on your shoulders that you're supposed to be looking out for the health and welfare of all of the citizens of the town. And something that is what I consider a life-threatening threat should be addressed. And, I have no other idea of how to address it other than maybe doing that. But kind of coming here as I think we need to start somewhere. And I think you, although you don't like to hear it, I think you want to be aware if there is a problem, what it is, and what we could do. And I think if your time is there, pretty much concludes what I wanted to say. Is there anything that you have for a question or you would like to ask me? I mean, obviously, if there's anything I can do to move the thing forward, I'll cooperate in any way, shape, or form I can.
So do I understand that the request is that the select board support a query to the agency, ANR, the Agency of Natural Resources, and perhaps the Agency of Transportation also, to look into the issue of culverts around Lowry Road and Kachuk Road and
Near the
that
Continental
section?
Divide. It's about a 2-mile section of road there.
And that you believe that the problem is life-threatening?
Oh, the bug situation is getting very bad. It's
Mosquito.
because
Because of the
there's so much standing water that the mosquito problem is getting to be. There's also, most everybody loves the deer.
Yeah.
Because of the way the water backs up. Almost every year I find at least one fawn that has fallen into that standing water. This place is the water 6 foot deep, and the fawn just can't get through that water, and the fawn ends up drowning and dying there. I think a lot of it is the mother is jumping the stream and gives birth, and that the baby fawn falls into the stream.
And so you've tried to talk with our road commissioner about this?
Well, like I said, Dan's only real concern becomes when the water goes under Lowry Road itself. All of the rest of it, well, I don't know what the problem has been for years. I don't know how familiar you are with the Tyler Hill Road section there.
I know the road, I don't exactly know the area.
I believe for years that the Vernon board, I think Vernon has handled the plowing and the maintenance of that section of road. So it's kind of, but again, I think that we need to get Vernon, if we're going to do something, we also need to get Vernon involved, because if we correct the problem at Tyler Hill Road, the next problem downstream is going to be where it goes under, what's the road there, off from 5, at the bottom of the hill. I'm trying to think of the name of the road.
Not Franklin.
Franklin Road. Yeah, near the Coombs Farm, what was the Coombs Farm, the stream goes under that, and eventually that stream goes into Broad Brook below the falls, if you're familiar where the falls are. But, obviously, I think Guilford and Vernon have usually had a pretty good rapport over the years. And I don't think we're gonna make a lot of friends with Vernon if we immediately channel a whole bunch of water into their town and wash out their roads, so. And I think the same thing, I think that when we get into the Fall River section, we need to work with the select board of the town of Berniston, because the Fall River goes through their town, and what we do up here is going to be of interest to them. Well, you know, the water's gonna come into their building. The thing that,
Let me just ask you,
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt,
Go ahead.
is the standing water beside the road or sometimes in the road? I'm just trying to, I mean, I understand that the danger is of West Nile virus with the decline of the bats and drowning deer and all that, but is your concern about the water just beside the road as a health hazard, or is it washing out roads?
well, I'm losing my whole backyard.
Oh,
My backyard is going downstream.
wow.
It was, you know, filled with, it built up over the years, and the water, it just is washing downstream. To put perspective, the worst time since '74, if you remember back in June of, I think it was June of '85, there was a torrential rain that just stayed here and hammered us for days and days and days. At that time, the water got up where it almost went over from Tyler Hill. Below me by the Lowry Road, the water went over the road, and it several times goes over the road. What was the Boy Scout camp, that was the Gat's place. Of course, that's probably the bat problem. They renovated that whole barn, and probably the bats lost part of their homestead. But those people, every time, this rain that we had a couple of days ago, it put water over, was flooded the whole yard there of the Miller place, but it didn't go over the road. But during that time, but the problem that I seem to have, predominant problem that I seem to have with the Agency of Natural Resources is, I've showed them the U.S. Geological Survey map, which most people consider the gold mine, the gold standard. It clearly shows this, you know, small 300-foot separation between the two streams. But what the Agency of Natural Resources keeps pulling out is the map that a photograph that they took during the high water time. I'm telling you, it was June, I think it was '85. I stand corrected on the date if I'm wrong on the date. But during that time, they put a helicopter up in the air, and they took a thing. So they maintain that the water has always stayed there, and that I'm trying to create a new situation, that it's a natural wetland, or if it's a man-made wetland, you know, and they just don't seem to want to address the situation at all.
Do you have correspondence, records of correspondence with the ANR?
I've been hauled into their environmental court, I don't know how many
But
times,
it's
because they claim that it's all my fault.
it.
Well, a few years ago, back in '76, back when the guy across the road died, Bob Whitney, knew that I wanted to raise husky, and he came to me and he said, look, it's filled up, I have logged that area behind you, it's filled in, take a shovel, dig it. Dig the stream back out where it'll drain. So I was hauled into court for digging the stream long before the Agency of Natural Resources ever existed.
And, sorry, Gabby, did you have?
Oh, no, I mean, I feel like this is sort of a little bit of a complex issue where we need some more history and more information, so maybe the best approach might be for Peter to touch base with both Dan, who probably has also been our road commissioner since probably the 70s, literally, and who knows the history, as well as to touch base and figure out what actually has corresponded with the ANR, and whether take it from there and figure out whether there's an approach we can or can take.
Well, like I said, what I'm suggesting to you is that I'm probably not the right person to go to them, but I'm just asking you to take a look at it and see if you agree that it's a problem. And like I said, it's it's pretty flustering for those of us that are down there, that we deal with the traffic and everything else. And I think the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that, good or bad, we are the gateway to Kelvin's highway. And when those people come up through there, and people that ride bicycle up through there, we are the first thing that they see. And if they, most of us that are down there try to take some pride in the way we keep our property. I think you guys would agree with me. I think you would like to have it that if the people, for whatever reason, come up 5, that they look at it and say, hey, this is kind of a nice place. Maybe I ought to come back here when I could take another look at it and spend a little more time here. And,
Thank you.
So maybe I can make,
Steve, did you?
Just on the floodplain administration side of things.
Right.
I'll take a look at the plot numbers and see what streams are involved in this and
So
what.
you, and I like Gabby's suggestion, I think that you could contribute to the
Yeah, I'll-
assessment of the situation.
See what, where, when, why,
Yeah.
and how, and then see if we can come to some
Right.
plan.
well, like I said, the main reason that I came tonight was to, get you the idea that it's something that we should, if not the front burner, at least the back burner to start proceeding on. I mean, you got this building done, so you must be looking for a new project.
So I'm thinking maybe middle burner because Peter's off for a bit and we have another study that we're doing as well. But I think that it would make sense for us to look at your situation, the situation that you're raising, and to understand the history better with Danny and also with the floodplain issues.
Yep, I made an action point for me to follow up with Steve and Dan.
Anybody have any other comments?
John, how big is the area where the standing water seems to stay? Would
Well-
you say roughly?
Well, as I say, from Tyler Hill Road, it comes up past my point. And I have a little retention pond there from the culvert. Bernie LaRock, our former, was
Yeah.
big on fire ponds.
Right.
And, as a citizen of the town, I'm kind of proud that I've got a fire pond and I got a cement block building. My building, it probably can't burn to the ground, but I got a fire pond for the neighbors to use. But, it's got to the point that it's very questionable how much longer the water will drain out of my pond to serve the retention pond scenario. And on the other side, like I say, on the other side now, that Gat's Pond goes to the culvert that doesn't drain. That pond is completely full of water. And every time that it rains, so basically that's serving like a retention pond on that side. So we're basically at the, the part of the reason that in that June of '85, that it was such a big problem was that nobody expected that storm to be what it was. Nobody expected it to stay the way it did. The Connecticut River usually controls the dam level, and when they know the water is, if they know a big deluge is coming, they start letting the water out of the dam. They have a place for the water to back up. During that June of '85, they had all the dams were full to capacity, so it was just the same as what you got in the gas pond now. It just started, it was the worst case scenario, basically.
Okay, no, I
So-
appreciate that.
Thank you. I think we have a good sense of issue, questions, and next steps. And I think at some point,
Because I'm only trying to mention to you that the history that I have with the agency is not very favorable. So, I think that, I think that where you're starting from scratch or from day one, that you kind of, I think it's only fair for me to give you what history I know and to say that if you want me to cooperate with you, if you want me to stay out of the picture, I'm leaving that up to you how you want to proceed with that.
thank you. I also personally found that your introduction, the Indian history, very interesting, and I wonder if you would be willing to share your notes with the select board.
You want to see it? I don't agree, but.
And we can make a
maybe
copy.
we
but
You can make
a
copies
copy.
of them
But it
and
was
get it back
just,
to you.
it's an interesting history, and I just appreciated your sharing that.
If you're really interested, there is, I don't know if you're familiar, the next, my territory basically is the state of Vermont, the eastern half of the state. We go all the way from the Great Falls, Indurness Falls, and actually, if you're familiar with the King Philip's War, Skekatuka, New York. When King Philip went to Skekatuka, New York, there was a treaty signed. And the treaty said that all of what was the Skokie territory would be the first reservation in the state. And
So,
New York got the other side of the Hudson River. So we are in, the whole state of Vermont is actually a native reservation.
So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Personally, I'm interested. I don't think it's a select
No,
board
I
matter,
think
but
that,
I would
be pleased to read it
Yeah.
as well. And having to move on doesn't mean that
No,
we're not interested.
Well, like I say, if you're interested at all, there is quite an event that they do at the little park there in Turners Falls, Nuckachuk, I think they call it. And they usually ask me to come down. I usually tell the story about where the fish dance. Most everybody likes to hear that. And, you know, I think the other reason that I contribute that there's been so much hard feelings between the native and the white people is that we tended to look a lot further to the future. As I said, we tried to look 7 generations ahead. I mean, well, right now you're trying to figure out how to make the payroll for next, sometimes you're looking forward to how you make the next payroll. So, you know, it's a whole different perspective on how 2 cultures live.
Thank you very much, John.
Okay, thank
You also have one more piece of paper there with your pen and your coin.
Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
Well, like I said, you know, if I can be of some help, fine. If I can't, you know.
Thank you.
Sure.
Nice to see you all, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
you
much.
coming
Take care.
forward.
I appreciate your help.
The next item on the agenda is Bob Spencer, who the executive director of Windham Solid Waste Management. I thank them for their newsletter and the progress report a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago. And as a result, which I think I sent to everybody.
Yeah.
They sent it to us or me, and I sent it out. And he said, Bob offered to meet with the select board to discuss their programs in Guilford. And I said to him that I would let him know if the select board, I said, I thought we got as much information as we could use from the progress report and the newsletter, but that I would take a poll and see if people wanted to meet with him or have him come and present current information on the Windham Solid Waste Management District. So I will hear what people have to say.
I'm comfortable with reading what he put down in writing. I read it, and unless there's something that is changing within Windham Solid Waste that is significant in terms of our annual expense, I don't need to have Bob Spencer. I don't feel it's necessary.
Anybody else?
Was there something specific that he thought
He just-
needed elucidation or?
No, I think he just, I mean, I think they like to touch base with the
Uh-huh.
different towns.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if other towns respond to the the progress reports. I just found it pretty informative and thanked them for sending it out and said that I'd.
That's the first time I think I've seen that. Maybe
Me
it's
too.
come to me before, but
I think so. That's one that I remember,
Yeah.
so. So I'm guessing we're okay with the progress report.
Did you have a feeling about it?
I will let him know, thank you.
One less meeting for Bob Spencer.
Right.
But it's nice he offered.
Yes.
That's positive.
Okay.
So I could just
Would you like
explain
to talk
about
about
the
Chris
rec
Zappalla?
commission. Yeah, I mean, the rec commission has been down a few members, and Chris Zappalla has stepped up. He's part of their Nordic Trail, development, and he seems enthused. And I said, well, we have to endorse that appointment, so I'd like to move that we do so.
Appoint Chris Zappalla as a commissioner for the Recreation Commission.
Yes, for the rec commission.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
You'll second. Any questions? Any discussion?
They're doing wonderful work
I know.
with a shoestring crew.
I know.
And really trying to reach out to other commissions, and they've got a big Halloween hoo-ha planned that's just really touching.
Lovely. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Old business, oh, a horse, sorry, Peter.
So last week we had an anonymous caller report that there is a horse on Sweet Pond Road that is starving to death. That caller also notified Windham County Humane Society. Unfortunately, the executive director of Windham County Humane Society had been on vacation last week, and a staff member told the caller that they couldn't do anything about it, which is not correct. I got some information from them late today, which is why it was the late edition, in that they have some photos. They are concerned that the horse potentially has less than a week to live if action isn't taken. They are ready to take action, but they need select board approval to do so, since we do not have a dog officer or animal control officer. And with that, they need the select board to request assistance from Vermont State Police, because they cannot do this on their own, because they will be going in to remove the animal from the property. So they're concerned that the animal will die very soon if action is not taken.
So let me just understand. Has anybody who really understands about horses assessed the health of this horse?
Yes, a veterinarian has gone up there from Windham County Humane Society, as well as one of the anonymous caller, who apparently owns 3 or 4 horses themselves,
Yeah.
attempted to speak with the person that lives there and was asked to leave the property.
Okay.
So that's been the contact. Has there been any other contact with trying to find out?
Historical Society. You want to go to the Historical Society, Nathaniel, sorry.
Good
That's
to
where
see
they are.
everyone though.
Yeah.
Not
That you know?
that
Okay.
I've been aware of.
I'm sorry, would you repeat your question?
I'm just, has anyone reached out to talk to the owners of this horse? Now that it is.
Well,
That's
other
not
than the neighbor.
private.
Other
or
than
the-
the,
Other than the neighbor, no.
the anonymous, I don't know if the person who called is the neighbor, but the anonymous caller attempted to
Right.
talk to them, as did
I see.
Windham County Humane Society, and they have not been able to get in contact with the people that live there.
So we have no reason to doubt the veracity of this, and so we would just
So I'll, I
be,
was gonna say, I'll just make a motion to,
Yeah.
have Windham County Humane Society go about the proper procedures, contact Vermont State Police, and do what's necessary to remediate the situation, given the dire straits of the animal.
I'd second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to table Green River Road repairs between my vacation and today. I haven't been able to close the loop on things, but I'll either update people in the next several days or via email, or send out or we'll talk about it at the next meeting. There's nothing urgent. So, and I had a random item on the discussion updates, Windham Regional Commission update. I had noticed on the Planning Commission agenda that Gabby was going to update them, and I thought maybe you'd be interested in doing the same thing for the select board, but if you...
Nope, and luckily, I mean, I contacted Steve yesterday, who's our other regional commissioner, who was able to come tonight, so
Great.
thank you, Steve, for coming on.
Come
Very
join
good
us.
notice.
So are you both doing this, the same show, the same update for Planning Commission, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was just gonna give trying to get into a cycle of every 6 months or so, having an update. We had our annual meeting in August. We passed our work program and budget for FY19, which is available online. It gives a lot of details about what's expected for next year. Fiscally robust and healthy organization, which is exciting. I think one thing to note that I found interesting is the where Windham Regional Foundation Windham Regional Commission gets its funding from, it's mostly through their contracts and grants. So while they do get town assessments from the 27 towns in the region, that actually only constitutes 5% of their total budget in any given
I
year.
had no idea.
So I think the CFO of WRC put it in perspective when he said that basically pays for staff's health insurance. The rest they are either getting from contracts or going out and getting grants. And
that's not to put down the contribution.
No, yes.
That's very good to know.
Before this game.
No,
It's not to put down how small it is, it's to point out
How
It's a small
dynamic
part of
they
what-
how
are.
hard WRC has
Yes.
to work to keep funding.
And that while
That's
it's the most flexible funding, because they can actually go out and help towns not have the constraints of a contract or grant requirements. So Steve's right, I don't want to say that it's, or imply it's unimportant at all, but I thought that was something that surprised me, actually. At our annual meeting, Linda Hecker, there's 2 appointees from each town appointed to that the town can appoint to the commission, as well as up to 10 special interest commissioners that focus on a particular, as you'd expect, area of expertise. And Linda Hecker was appointed as the Conservation Commission.
She was a
Citizens
busy
interest.
person.
Yeah,
Yes.
to do
Want
more.
get something done.
So we are very lucky to,
She's
I mean, look at
terrific.
everyone, Gabby,
Yes.
Steve, and Linda,
She
all
does
very busy
have,
people.
She does have a new grandchild, so anyway,
but that was, I think, really exciting.
terrific.
The other major event that's going to be sort of a multi-year project for the commission is that we're updating the entire regional plan and transportation plan. You don't even have it. The transportation plan is another inch thick. So it's a multi-year project. We're not under any time constraints, particularly given that the legislature now extended the renewal period to 8 years for town
As
plans.
opposed to 5?
And this one was done, the current one was done in 2014.
But the transportation was a year prior.
13.
So we have until 2021 because, yeah.
But they put out a request to the towns, to the select boards in the towns to comment on this planning process, right? Because I think I've already had a,
I don't think so. Right now we're in the, they might have, right now we're in the
Like seeking input?
pre-planning stages, which means we are just through our various commissions or committees pointing out the things or topics we'd like to address. It's then going to go back to the executive director by October, and then they're going to do a plan. So sort of trying to get a nature of the scope of what the commissioners want to do.
And I would guess that, based on what Chris Campany had said, that the plan for the next one will follow what was done for 2014, pardon me, which was an intensive regional plan update process began in October of 2012 for this one, and it had broad participation by the public through 4 public forums, an online forum, 30-day public comment periods on first and second drafts, and direct oral and written communication. WRC's town representing commissioners and staff have committed extensive time and resources toward the development of this plan. So I think you'll see an extensive thing, but based on how massive this plan is and how little bits of it can be written without a lot of knowledge, I think it's important that the select board, through Gabby and myself, understand that the topics that are coming up are land use, energy, the economy, natural resources, housing, education, cultural and recreational resources, and utilities, facilities, and technology. And I think once we get closer to writing or rewriting sections of this, I think it would be wise for us to keep sharing some of the more important salient points with you so that you know that when it's done, you've sort of been brought up to speed. Because to say, here, read this through and comment, I know how that works with the town plan and other things. So
it sounds very similar to the town plan.
It is, but we
You know.
also know that sometimes reading the town plan and plans like this, even by the people who endorse them, isn't always the case.
Right.
Okay, so I think it's inherent, and I'm taking this on. And you should also know that Gabby is now the new chair of the Windham Regional Commission. So you
Gabby.
have pretty good representation.
Congratulations. And thank you.
And for good reason. I mean, everybody was unanimous. So I think from my side, I will do the best I can to keep you up to date on the segments and let you know what's happening. So if there's something in particular that interests the town, you have a chance to think about it before you have a 30-day comment period and 2 meetings or something.
Right.
Yeah, and I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, there's going to be a number of public hearings,
Yeah.
and I think this is why you need to be on the executive board, Steve. It was discussed only in the executive board. I think it's sort of the approach that would be taken, and one of the things I'm excited about is, for example, to go into schools and say, this is great that maybe Steve or you guys are reading it, but what does someone who will be living here in 20 to 40 years hopefully
Right.
actually want the region to be looking like?
7 generations.
And that's really, I mean, I think that's an exciting aspect, and I know, I believe the town of Brattleboro has done that in the past with their town plan, and that's something where we've been discussing it at WRC, but again, we're in the pre-planning stages.
So anyway,
So-
whether it's formal or informal,
You'll probably have a little of
I
both.
think you should know and be aware that this is being started on, and that's the time to sort of just get a general interest in what's happening.
And would it be helpful for select board members, besides Gabby, to try to take an area that we either have some background in or some strong interest in and try to familiarize ourselves with it so that we could bring a little bit more strength to the discussion than just trying to understand all of it?
I think if there's particular issues, I mean, that's really why I also wanted to talk to the planning commission, because they're gonna be really they're a planning commission and they are familiar, like, I think they're just drafted for example, energy plan. So she's gonna be most familiar with what's in our town plan, what they've been hearing as concerns, and how that can feed into a regional plan.
And so what would you say the role of the select board should be in all this?
I think it could be what you want it to be, and
Okay.
it could be as active as you want it to be, and that's one of the reasons why I want to talk to both, the planning commission and the select board and bring it up. But I just sort of wanted you guys to be on the lookout for it. I don't think it's something you should, add to your workload because there's a number of people involved.
One thing I would suggest is that if you look at the existing plan and think about the upcoming one, look at the Windham regional profile, all right? Because the profile of demographic statistics and things like that will be changing and has changed. So that would give you some background of what the regional commission was looking at when they based the current profile.
And where is that profile?
It's online. If you go to the
It's
Windham
actually in
Regional,
publications
go to the Windham
too,
Regional
yeah.
Commission, you can download parts of this or
Okay.
all of it, right?
I know that all the maps are being updated, and one of the drivers for this was definitely the regional energy plan, where certain towns were concerned that the regional mapping and land use definitions didn't match what their towns were wanting to do with their land use. So certain towns have more particular, more pressing issues, particularly because of energy related, either for wind or solar related projects that have come up. But sitting in the select board, I haven't seen any major ones that haven't sort of been already discussed. And I think having Linda Hecker there as liaison as well. She's not really just for our town, she's a broader Conservation Commission interests, but we'll have a good representation. But I think the thing is, if you think of something, or if I hear of something during a select board meeting that it is appropriate to bring up, that will happen. Either contact me or Steve. One of the things, I'll give you honestly, what's the example of how sort of Windham Regional Commission can sort of connect the dots between the state and local governments? And one of them is related to the PUC, because we sort of had a lot of discussions recently relating to the PUC and the issues that came up. Is it Tinker Hill?
Kurtheimer Drive. Public Utilities Commission, let me just say that for PUC, Public Utility Commission, Kurtheimer Drive Solar.
And so one of the things, Chris Campany, the executive director, is now the chair of APTA, which is the state regional planning commission agency or organization. And so it came out of, maybe you don't know this either, but the project review committee at the WRC reviews all Act 250 and Act 248s and comments on them if they deem them regionally significant. And one of the things that the project review committee had been struggling with is some of the issues and some of the new statutes that the PUC has put out. And we started, expressing concerns to Chris. Chris then brought it up at VAPTA, and a lot of the regional commissions were experiencing the same issues. VAPTA wrote a letter to the PUC, and that seems to be effective. I just got an email today that the PUC has asked for an informal meeting with RPCs about their concerns. So Windham Regional Commission can be a really effective way to connect the dots all the way up.
And through the state,
Mhm.
right? Because there are 11 regional planning commissions, and Chris is the chair of all.
Of the RPCs.
That's great.
Yeah, one other thing just to make you aware of, I was going to tell the planning commission, but we renewed or amended our energy plan. What usually happens is when you have a town plan, it goes through its process at the town level and then goes up to the WRC, so it's regionally approved. That's a requirement for certain grants, like municipal planning grants. Our energy plan didn't get pushed up to WRC, so
Did not?
no. So technically, right now, we don't have a fully approved WRC plan, so that's something that we should just, and I spoke about this, it came up in a different context, but Pete, who's the chair of the Planning Coordination Committee, suggested we push it up to the Planning Coordination Committee at WRC, and then they will do the hearing and do what review they need to do at that level.
Why
should they put
wasn't our,
That's not, I
Yeah.
don't know.
okay.
And I don't think it really matters, I just think we just need to take care of it so we can check our boxes and be
Okay.
in good shape.
I'm sorry, Gabby, who does that need to be sent to?
Pete, P-I-E-T. And
Van Loon, yes. Are you done? I have a couple.
No, I just
Okay.
want to sort of give you an update about different committees. Steve and I are both on the Natural Resources Committee. Brownfields has been going through their disbursement process, and the revolving loan funds are actually starting to revolve. And Susan McMahon, who is Brownfields guru, also got supplemental funds from the EPA this summer. So that's a really active
To the
program.
tune of $500,000, so that was a very good supplement.
Do we have brownfields?
We've
For
used it
example,
in
Guilford?
Algiers.
Oh, you mean over by the Green River?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
That was the most recent project, and since then there's
Oh,
been a couple
that's
more,
right.
like one on Bird Street in Brattleboro that
Oh,
have
yes, I
come
know
through.
about that.
Yeah, come through in the WRC Brownfields program. Community development is really looking out and investigating different housing options in preparation for revamping the regional plan, and they're also working on a sister city in Sweden and making that connection. Yeah, and I'd say those are the big updates. Do you have anything else, Steve?
So
Sounds-
housing options for Guilford or just in? for the
Remember, this is all
region.
regionally.
Okay.
So I have a couple Guilford-centric questions. One is, what is your new title there? You're chair of
Board chair.
the Windham Regional Commission Board.
The commission, yeah.
Ooh, congratulations. How many times a month do you guys meet?
The full commission meets bi-monthly. Most of the other committees, you can be on as many committees as you want, meet monthly or as needed.
So you have a minimum of 3 Windham Regional Commission meetings a month?
Likely, yeah.
Yo.
And I'm on the executive
Not
board
me.
too, so.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm just like keenly aware that this is eating into Gabby's time.
In a good way, it's a really amazing organization,
Right.
so worthwhile.
And I had a question about the, does the Algiers Village Vision Plan come up in any of the Wyndham Regional Commission meetings?
No,
The vision, because that
I mean,
was
it came up in
through Susan
Brownfields.
McMahon and Emily Davis, and I didn't know if there was any discussion of that.
It used some Brownfields, area-wide Brownfields funding,
Yeah.
but it didn't come through the Brownfields Commission. Like,
Mhm.
it wasn't a project that came through the Brownfields committee per se, but that to me is a really local, and that's something local that WRC can do for
Right.
towns.
And finally, do I understand that you want to do these updates every 6 months? So
Yeah.
is that what you had suggested? Because I think that a couple meetings ago, you suggested more frequently. So I want to make sure that Peter has the next, tickler for when we're gonna,
I think I would suggest every 6 months, sort of formally like this.
Right.
As needed.
Something comes up,
A little
you'll address
tickler
it.
or a heads up saying page 12 of the current plan is under consideration. And
Good.
I was at the meeting, I saw the notes, and this is what you might be interested in that's happening. Because to get the feedback from the 27 towns, it's pretty fascinating to be at the meeting and hear what is similar and dissimilar within each of the communities.
It's our regions are really diverse, and it's really diverse from town to town.
Right, when you see the map, you think, whoa.
so
That's a great idea.
I think this is great, thank you for this. It's more in-depth than I anticipated, and I appreciate it. So we'll see if we can whip through the rest of this meeting so that you can get to the planning commission.
Don't terrorize them.
Well, no, they meet from 7 to 8:30, so we're okay. Hopefully we'll get there. So Peter, do you want to talk about the town office, the final walkthrough, and
Yes, and Gordon can fill in, he was here as well. Last week we had the final, before the final walkthrough, we had our final inspection from the State Division of Fire and Safety, and we were granted our occupancy permit. There was nothing from that review and walkthrough that stood out as any concern to them. There were a couple minor oddities, but nothing that was a problem to them. After that, we had a meeting with the architects with GPI, as well as the plumbing contractor was here, then representatives from each of the engineering firms were also here to do their review of the work that had been completed. There were a few minor things that came up on the walkthrough, and so those were added to the punch list that each group was making, and then they were all going to submit them to Joe for a final one.
and that was today that you had this meeting, or last week?
That was last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday.
Morning.
So is the punch list up someplace where people can look at it, or is it not?
I just got the final punch list this morning.
Mhm.
I can share it with you guys if you want.
I don't know if
to
people
see
are
it.
interested, but Gabby, you've asked for it, you've asked about it.
No, that's really about time frame. I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out a schedule and time frame and where we were.
Yep, so most of the items on the punch list relate to the electrical contractors. They are scheduled to come on Wednesday morning of this week to deal with those items. There's a couple minor things relating to paint and wall finishes that the painter needs to come and take care of. And then there were one part related to the thermostats and the mini splits had been missed by the plumbing contractor, and he is supposed to come, I believe, towards the end of this week, Thursday, I think, to get those taken care of.
And you will not be here, does somebody else?
I had a
Appointed.
discussion with my colleagues this morning. I mean, both contractors have been spoken with from both GPI and the architect, so
Okay.
they are fully aware of what needs to be considered.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add, the plumbing contractor knows what.
Yeah, he was part of the conversation.
He was a
Yeah.
big part of the conversation, so I'm not concerned if Peter's
Okay,
not
just-
here.
just
When
wanna-
he arrives to get this resolved specifically
Okay.
with that individual, I mean, he was
Yeah.
very,
And then the only other minor thing is it was actually noted that our front door is not ADA compliant. And we were actually very surprised that didn't get noticed, and so,
Not by the architects?
no.
Yo.
Joe was actually the one that noticed it.
Yeah, Joe,
And so he had a conversation with Gordon and me.
yeah, we talked about it and how, I guess Mike, and this was toward the end of our walkthrough or our time together. So I didn't circle with Chip. By the time we got done talking about Chip, I think had
That's correct.
left the physical area. But my question, I guess, and I don't know how relevant it is how does Chip miss this on a plan?
Yeah.
Because, and the issue is there's a raised ledge, as you, like that one, if you were to egress in and out of the building. And Well, someone could help someone over that. It is not what I
Right, it's
foresee
not
as what we should have after we've just spent what we did to have the ramps leading in.
What's the difference in what would be ADA, right, because you can have different heights depending on the different shape of the.
It's a slope, I mean, just so that the wheelchair doesn't, catch, I think. I don't know what the rule, I mean, that's
Joe,
way
you-
out of mine. I'm just thinking
Well, I'm just saying,
intuitively, you
what-
couldn't wheel over it easily.
Right,
Individually.
but is it ADA compliant or is it too high?
Joe said it's too high. He
So-
said he will look at the specific regulation for it, but he said, just from experience, he does know it's too high. He doesn't know what the minimum or the maximum can be for ADA compliance. He is going to give us a quote for a new door, because he was unsure that.
And frame? Or sill?
Sill,
That's what I'm
that's-
asking, is
you
it the door,
can't-
is it the
It's
sill?
the
is it
sill.
You
It's the
can't
sill.
just change the sill, which was what I was hoping that we could
Yeah.
do. And mainly because of the way it would come into the room. And then you've got edges on either side. And Joe said, it's much cleaner and
He
You
said
know,
probably gonna be.
it makes a lot more sense aesthetically if we were to replace the door with an ADA
Well,
compliant.
he also
door.
pointed out to us that it will probably cost about the
Right,
same
to
to
do
modify
both.
the sill as it would to replace the entire door with a sill that's ADA
Right.
compliant.
So I asked him to go forward with finding out, specifically, so we have an understanding of what that cost is to do that work.
I guess my a concern would be the fact that we were so clear in even the broadest definition of this project that it needs to be ADA compliant in the RFP and in all of the negotiations, that I wonder if there's
Gordon was
a,
very strong about that point.
Discussion.
This is my
Chip?
issue, and I think that's the conversation we as a select board have to have with Chip and understand it, or someone has to have it with Chip to understand, how that slipped through.
and you are out for the next week.
Yep.
And is Joe gonna take care of this in the interim? I mean,
Yeah,
Or
you
is he
gotten
gonna
anything?
wait?
You haven't
I've not gotten
yet
anything
back
from him. Yeah,
Chip's business.
Joe was on a small vacation himself last
Yeah.
week for a couple days.
I just wonder.
So I think it's something on a time frame we're gonna try to deal with as quickly as possible, but we didn't
So I'm
have
just
a-
wondering if you should be the person to call Chip this week in Peter's absence, to ask him
Good.
how he might.
Is there,
Foresee this.
isn't he accountable for seeing to something like that? And
It depends, because on the plans, it has our existing door, which
But-
is what is there.
So I think,
I think it's-
you need to talk to Chip and find
Right,
out,
and
you
that's the
know,
conversation, I think.
before we
'cause-
start
Right,
pointing fingers and.
no, exactly, so I don't think, I don't think he's aware of the situation either.
Mhm.
So I think having a conversation with Chip would be the first starting point. What I was hoping to have was a number so that we could have a conversation with Chip. And maybe that was
Right.
poor judgment, I should have,
I'll follow up real quick.
cleared this with, well, no, and I can talk to Chip regardless.
Well, I was gonna say with
of
Joe,
that. I
just
think it's
see
a
if we
conversation.
can get something for you before you talk to Chip.
But Chip has been very supportive, very helpful this whole process.
Right,
So
it just-
I just think it's something that was missed.
I'm not sitting here pointing figures. I like Miranda's word of accountability. Just
Yeah,
saying that.
A lot, I think we just need to find out with Chip, because a lot of people looked at all these plans, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly. Anything more on the renovations? Any more
No.
questions?
How much is left in our contingency?
The number was in the file.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was in the
I
file.
don't want to guess.
Yeah. I think I was just confused by the
Yep, just
status of the FY18, FY19, and
because of
the
our,
budget, the fact that there was no budget number in there, I was not, it was just not what I'm used to looking at.
okay, hold on a second. Just because the way that NEMRIC does the report, so, I mean, the budgeted amount, and this is in the folder, that you can see for the contingency was $29,796. At the, let's see, for the 2019, we haven't used anything out of there.
We have the septic system
Yeah,
coming out of that.
the septic system was $2,300 and some dollars, which will come out of that. So there's
For
roughly
design.
for the design, yes.
And then the septic system itself is gonna be about
11.
11?
It was 11,900 that you guys approved.
Okay,
So it's roughly, we've used roughly half of the
okay.
contingency.
So we have plenty of money for it.
Yes.
Yes.
Steve,
Well, and I think that,
That's why I said to Joe, please just get us a number.
well, I mean, Joe also
Figure
said that
out
he was
the-
going to have a conversation with Chip about what to do about that as well.
Right. It wasn't just on us.
No, he
Yeah.
did not feel it was solely our responsibility.
Once you have the door fixed and the punch list done and things, is there any plan to have a community open house to let the community come and see the money that was spent on this nice facility?
there probably will be, but we haven't got there yet.
I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
suggest if you haven't
Yeah.
thought about it, that you think about it, I think it would be a
Yeah.
good idea based on, you know, the value and
Right,
how the
right.
building looks now, so.
Thank you.
Great suggestion.
Can we move on to volunteers? I just want to say that we need volunteers for the Recreation Commission, volunteers for the Conservation Commission. The Guilford Volunteer Fire Department is looking for two new trustees. Am I correct in that? And then we have the dog officer and constable positions that are open. So we are looking for lots of volunteers. I'm going to write this again on Front Porch Forum, but I wanted to say that dog officer and constable could be male or female, or male and female. So that we need to be, hopefully people are thinking about this in the broadest possibilities, so.
And also, you know, these responsibilities are really important, but they're not really hard. I mean, they're not truly beyond the workload of somebody who's got a job to just fill in and take part.
Well, we have good examples of that on all of our commissions of people who have full-time jobs. Okay. So does anybody want to take on warrants, or shall I? Because I actually looked at them. Okay. So, I can see the invoice list. I would like to, I don't know if I can legally do this, but
You can request a motion.
request a motion to, thank you, to approve payroll for a week ending 9/16/18 in the amount of $5,687.43. Payroll for the week ending 9/23/18 in the amount of $5,554.25. Expense warrant 1806 in the amount of $144,327.01. And expense warrant FW06 in the amount of $98.50. The largest amounts for, in the expense warrant of 1806 are $88,600 to MT3 for restoring Green River Road, and $27,851 for culverts and ditches on Sweet Pond Road. And
Of which most of that will
of
be
which
covered
the
by a
27 is going to, 24,000 of the 27 will be covered by the Sweet Pond, by a grant from the state. The 88,000 is, Gabby, I think you and Dan talked about this. He said that you and he had a discussion about it, and to some extent, but we had anticipated an invoice of around 40 for the initial job and 2,000 plus hours of labor for the second job that was on top of that, and it actually took much more materials and expensive equipment rental, higher than anticipated. So those are the outstanding things.
Well, I so move.
You so move, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm just saying I couldn't get here this weekend.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session at whatever time for 1 VSA 313A1 to discuss personnel matters and 1 VSA 313-3 to discuss contract details, and invite Peter to join in the second part of this discussion.
So moved.
Wait, but when you do contracts, it needs to be a two-part motion.
So it's separated?
No, physically it needs to be a two-part motion. You need to.
We could just break it into 2 executive sessions.
Yeah, you could do that too. Either way, we just need to fix the motion so it's
So
appropriate.
Good.
do you want to
No, she's
fix
searching.
that motion?
We can go into the first one and then I'll find it while we discuss.
So you're gonna,
Move to go into,
for personnel matters per 1 VSA 313A1.
So moved.
Okay, and then once you come out of that, we can go into the other.
okay. Brenda, somebody want to second that, please? Well,
Oh, sure. I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Gabby?
Yes.
Thank you. So we are coming out of executive session and taking at 7:45 p.m. And taking no action, and then we are entertaining a motion to go into executive session again.
I'll move to find that premature general public knowledge of contract discussions regarding Rescue Inc.'s contract clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage.
So we should go into executive session?
No.
It's 2 separate ones.
So that's my motion period. That
Oh.
premature knowledge would put us at.
Got it, okay, so now,
So now I'll
so
make
wait,
a-
you moved, so somebody needs a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now Gabby
And
will,
I'll move to
Okay.
enter into executive session under 1 VSA section 313A3.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we will go into executive session with Peter at
Aye.
7:46 p.m. So the select board is coming out of executive session at 7:51 p.m. and we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Gordon as our select board rep to negotiate and vote on the Rescue Inc. contract at the upcoming meeting,
Per
per our discussions during executive session.
second?
I'll
Miranda?
second, yeah. I shall
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Peter, you wanted to remind us about the select board meeting dates?
Yes, it's primarily to remind folks that the next select board meeting is going to be on Wednesday, the 10th of October, and not on Monday, the 8th, because of Columbus Day. It will be held here at 6:30.
So I had a question, which is that I think Guilford Cares meets that night and the Rec Commission meets that night. So will there be room here for 3 meetings at once?
I can tell you, they don't meet on the second Tuesday, I don't believe.
Let's see, the Rec meets on the second
But I-
Wednesday.
Yes,
So are we meeting on the Tuesday?
10th.
or
The
Wednesday?
10th
it's
is-
the 10th. I'm pulling up the calendar and I'll tell you, because we've started using a
I'm sorry.
calendar here. Yes, all 3 are technically scheduled to meet on the same day.
Well, that's what I was just wondering about. Do we have 3, you
No,
know, 'cause-
we only have
We
2
have 2.
couples. And Guilford Cares meets an hour before we do, and the Recreation Commission meets at the same time.
So.
So I think
perhaps
we-
can
Peter has
just
time to
share
work
the-
that out.
I'll have to work
Okay.
that out. Yep.
I would entertain a motion for adjournment at 7:53 p.m.
So moved.
Gabby, thank you.
Second.
Gordon, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 See you all on the 10th.